Welcome to Spotlight on Sports, brought to you by the Chester County Sports Hall of Fame. I'm Michael Peich, president of the Chester County Sports Hall of Fame, and I'll be your host and occasional interviewer for the series. In this series, we will introduce you to members of our Hall of Fame who will share their personal stories about their life in sports. The series will also serve as an informal history of sports in Chester County, and we hope that you enjoy each profile. Please come back often to hear new interviews or to enjoy previous discussions. We encourage you to join the Chester County Sports Hall of Fame and urge you to follow the link displayed at the end of the interview or go to our website to become a member. If you enjoy what we are doing and would like to support our activities, please consider making a gift in support of the Richard B. Yoder High School Scholar Athlete Award or for our general organizational needs. Thank you. Now, sit back, relax, and let's put the spotlight on sports. Today's spotlight falls on Harry Lewis Jr. Harry is a Coatesville native and with the exception of a few years in his life, has been a resident of Coatesville for his entire life. He was a star sprinter and hurdler on the Coatesville High School track and field team. He took his athletic skills to Winston-Salem University. And when he graduated from college, he returned to Coatesville to teach special education and health and physical education and to coach track and field. During his 36 years as head coach, Harry's teams compiled an enviable record of 174 victories against 17 losses. This included 15 undefeated seasons, 23 Chessmont team championships, and a PIAA state team championship. During Harry's career, he mentored 22 high school All-Americans and Penn Relays championship athletes. Harry served as principal of Coatesville High School before retiring in 2006. He has been an almost 50-year member of the Penn Relays officiating team. From 2012 to 2018, Lewis represented the 74th District in Chester County in the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. In addition to being a member of the Coatesville Hall of Fame, he was named the 2018 Chester County Chamber of Business and Industry Citizen of the Year. Harry, welcome to Spotlight on Sports.
Thank you, Michael, and it's a pleasure to be with you and have this opportunity.
Well, it really is a pleasure because our viewers don't know that we've been friends for many, many years, and our relationship goes back to the Penn Relays when we first met, and we've nurtured that friendship, and it's a valued one for me. So let's begin. Let's talk a little bit about your career in sports, and I'll begin by asking you, what's the earliest memory you have of playing sports? And did that early memory, did that inspire you in any way to become involved in sports?
Well, Mike, let me say this. It's been a long time, and my sporting career began in the mid-50s, 1956 and on up to present. During that time, it was a different world. It was different in that the cultures were different, the cultures were separated, and you were more or less doing what you had to do to survive. Basically, you went to school, and at the time I went to a segregated junior high school, which was the term at that time. And the name of that school was the James Adams School, and basically a neighborhood school. And all of the minority children went to that school and then transitioned to the high school, which was at the time Scott High School. Sports started with me at that level. And we talked about getting involved. You didn't really know what you wanted to do. There wasn't a lot of media. So you had to survive on your own ability to do what you wanted to do sport wise. And I got interested through one of my coaches at the junior high level, Mr. William Pop Ransom. He was our junior high coach, and he would gather the kids and, try this and try that. And I remember starting, I became a hurdler, and Pop Ransom started me as a hurdler. We jumped bamboo sticks in what was called Lumber Alley, right adjacent to the James Adams School. And I guess that was my start in running athletically. Well, as coaches do, you're good at this. Keep working at this. And so I did. And eventually, when I got to the high school, I became a hurdler and a runner. That's kind of how my sporting career started. And then once I got into high school with our high school coach at the time, Walt Funk, that's my track career. And I loved it so much, I just continued it. I did play high school football for about 2 years, my junior year and my senior year. As a matter of fact, I played with one of our other inductees, Billy Joe. We were neighbors, grew up in the same neighborhood. We were on the same team, football and track. And we were pretty good when we started. And at the high school level, we were very proud of ourselves, so to speak. Then we went on our different ways. Billy Joe, of course, went to Villanova. Big time, I went to NHBCU, Winston-Salem State University. At the time, Villanova, they were one of the top track teams in the country, and Little Winston-Salem was also one of the top track teams in the country. So when I graduated high school, they recruited me, and I was really into it then. And Mike, I loved it so much. That's what I focused on. Track has been my entire life. It paid for my education. It introduced me to the real world. And as I might say, we go back to the segregated days. I was trying to avoid that word, but it was that way. Mm-hmm. And we went on from there. I was recruited by one of the best track teams in the country. They were the shuttle hurdle relay champions, undefeated at that time at the Penn Relays. And one of my ambitions to be on that team. Luckily, I filled in a spot for one of the Olympians, Russ Rogers, at the time transferred from Winston-Salem State University and moved to Maryland State at Eastern Shore. That left a void on Winston-Salem's team, and that's how I became recruited to fill in that spot, of which I did. After that, I never looked back. I never looked back. So that's how I became involved in the sport, and still involved to a degree.
Did you win the Championship of America at the relay?
That was one of the highlights. 1962 High School Championship of America, Winston-Salem State University, 5th year in a row, and we never look back. And that still stands as the longest tenure for one team to win consecutively at the Penn Relays.
You talk about, I think our viewers don't understand the pervasive sense of segregation in this country, and particularly in sports. Did the segregation diminish at the high school level? I mean, you talked about going to a segregated junior high.
Well, it did diminish in the fact that you had one high school basically in each community that you attended, even though the junior highs or the elementary schools were segregated, the high schools weren't. So it sort of decreased to that level. And you got to know, your teammates of the other cultures and this kind of thing. So it's the same thing across the board. we weren't as segregated. We didn't feel as segregated, and we didn't think of it that way. I was very close to my white friends on my track team back in 1958 and 59. So we were very close and communicated once we went to our various colleges. There's another story behind that, but
Yeah.
I'll share that later.
Well, you probably won more Championship of America crowns than your teammate Billy Joe, even though he was a great shot putter.
Yeah. Well, we stayed in contact with each other. As a matter of fact, track brought us together at different venues in different parts of the country. And in one particular venue, Billy Joe being at Villanova and me being in North Carolina at Winston-Salem, after the Penn relays, we would always meet up at what they call the Quantico relays.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and I would bum a ride because that was the end of the college year. Coach Jumbo Elliott gave me permission to ride on the bus with my teammate Billy Joe, and I'd leave Quantico and come back to Pennsylvania. And as a matter of fact, during that time, Coach Jim Tuppeny was Jumbo Elliott's assistant.
That's right. Yes.
So I rode on the bus with those guys back and forth for a couple of years.
When I was a senior in high school, I used to watch a training film of Billy Joe throwing the shot put, and I modeled my shot putting after him. And it was a thrill in my life to meet him later in life through Masters competition. Did you have any sports heroes growing up? And do you think if you did they influence you at all in your sport?
We sort of created our own, not being sort of full of myself, but we created our own sports images. Like I admired Billy Joe. He was the star at the time because Villanova was recruiting him for football and what have you. And these guys would come around, and that's all we knew. We didn't have the media exposure that these athletes have today. So you admire that someone from out of Coatesville came to look at one of the athletes. And so we followed along with that. The only other hero and mentor that I might mention, I was introduced, and he was from Coatesville, Rod Perry.
Yeah.
Rod Perry was a NCAA champion hurdler at Penn State. And, that was the big guy and in track and field. And when he'd come home, he'd actually come down to our stadium, or the old Scott Field, the dirt track. And he actually worked with me to help me learn how to hurdle and give me different pointers and what have you. So he would have been my hero and the only outside influence that I would know. We didn't have too many people come to the Black community to show us what to do unless you were a super athlete.
Yeah. Well, I know you and I have talked on numerous occasions because I want to go visit your old neighborhoods because you're like the mayor of Coatesville, unofficial. And I want to walk around the old hood with you, Harry. So who was your mentor? Who were the people you looked up to and provided mentorship for you as you were growing up, developing your athletic skills, developing your coaching skills? Who were the people that provided a guideline for you?
Well, the one gentleman that really was responsible for me, that was my junior high school coach, William Pop Ransom. He started me in the sport, and he continued to follow me all through high school. And we would go with him for advice. We would run for him during the summer, and he was always hovering over us or whatever, and watching us as his son. So he would definitely be my classification as a major mentor and advisor. As a matter of fact, he was basically responsible for me getting into Winston-Salem. That story, I'm working at Lucan Steel Company right after high school. And he was in charge of all the programs and summer programs and playgrounds in the parks locally in Coatesville. And he happened to see me walking to work one day, and he asked me, "What are you still doing here?" He thought I had gone to college. I said, "No, I wasn't able to go." And he said, "What?" So he took it. He took the lead, made a phone call. That was on a Thursday. I never will forget it as long as I live. On a Thursday afternoon, Monday morning, I was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina by way of train, meeting with Coach Big House Gaines.
Wow. That's an incredible story. Just an incredible story. And I'm assuming too that you learned a lot of the skills of being a coach from him.
You know what? Funny you should mention that, because I mirror my style after Pop Ransom to this day. You know, I even use some of the same language that he used with me, with my athletes. The other person was Big House Gaines.
Yeah, legendary figure.
And we didn't have a lot of people. These coaches, especially Big House Gaines at an HBCU, Pop Ransom, a Lincoln University grad. These men took us under their wing. So we didn't use the term mentor. We just used the term coach, and they were like dads to us. You know, my father was a steel worker at Lucas Steel, and they didn't have that kind of time to come to our track meets. It was new. We were just having fun and games. But Coach Ransom, Coach Gaines, they took that interest that we needed to hear, that guidance, created that discipline in us athletically. So those are my two guiding lights, my two shining men in armor, as you said.
Well, you know, so often we hear the expression that sports prepare you for life, and too often it becomes a cliche, but it's true. I take things from my sports career and have carried them into my life, just as you have done. Although you working with kids as a coach, who was one of the toughest, or what was one of the defining moments, rather, in your coaching career? I mean, if you had to put your finger on one or two outstanding moments in your coaching career, what would they be? Or what would it be?
Well, it would be for me, number one, being named the head track coach at the high school that I graduated from.
Yeah.
And after I was named head coach. I started coaching in ninth grade program, and so on and so forth. I was under Ross Kershey. He was the head coach. And a little brief history, Ross Kershey started teaching at Scott High School my sophomore year. So that was my first year at Scott, and that was his first year at Coatesville. And he coached to that point, and I was able to succeed him as head coach.
That's phenomenal.
In 1975. And I tell you, that was really an honor for me to be named the coach of the high school that you've attended. And your successes in. And so that was fantastic. I was named head coach in 1975 to replace Ross Kershey. 2 years later, I won the Pennsylvania, or the PIAA State Track and Field Championship 2 years after being named head coach. That was one of the major highlights for me in my coaching debut.
Who were the outstanding athletes on that team, on that PIAA championship team?
We had the Hunter boys, gentleman named Britton Myers, a young man that we lost the first year after we won the state championship. His name was Bill Boynes, a javelin thrower, half miler. These are the star athletes, Donald Williams, even my brother, Larry Lewis. Those guys were all on that team. And that was just an honor for me to have those gentlemen be a part of that. They started with me in the ninth grade and just continued, year after year after year.
So you coached your brother.
I'm the oldest of 11 siblings, 2 girls, 9 boys. I coached 7 of my brothers.
That had to provide some really interesting family gatherings.
Oh, yes, we got a lot of stories.
I can't imagine.
I got a lot of stories.
Yeah, I'm certain you do. That's pretty incredible. That's the first time I've heard that you coached Larry. But
yeah. In fact, that's how Tuppeny and I, because Jim Tuppeny came to me because he wanted Larry to run track and hurdle for him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Let me see. 4 of my brothers were hurdlers, and actually, they all 4 were better than me. I guess I'm saying that publicly. I said, well, it was myself, and then my brother next to me, Glenn Lewis. We wanted him to go to school, but he chose another route. He went into the United States Marine Corps, and he ran the special teams. He ran with guys like Tom Smith. He was on the track team for the Quantico or the United States Marine Corps, and they had a powerful team. Glenn was a hurdler in the Richmond Flower area.
Oh yeah,
arena.
Great
in
hurdler.
Fact, he actually beat Richmond Flowers.
Did he really?
Yes. Oh yeah. Glenn was a very, very good hurdler.
Yeah, he must have been.
Vietnam War came along, and that ended the track part. But Glenn was very good. In fact, I wanted him to go to Winston-Salem, but he didn't want to go to college. He gung ho and that kind of thing.
So
then who was Larry? And Larry was better than Glenn.
Larry played a little basketball too.
Yeah, he played basketball for 4 years. Started as a freshman and started all 4 years with Ed Stefanski and those guys.
Yeah.
So that was Ron Hagler and those guys. Chuck Daly was the coach, and he never looked back from that. And then my brother Doug was a good hurdler. He was on our high school mile relay last year that Ross Kersey coached in 1974 track and field. My brother Doug was on that Championship of America high school team.
Wow.
And I started with those guys when they were, younger the year before in the winter season.
If you had to name one athlete that you coached who was probably the best of all of them, and I know that's a tough question to ask.
That's a very tough question.
I kind of have an idea. I might know the answer. Who would you pick?
I think about this often, and I'm literally, skeptical about naming anyone, but because all of them are really so good in their own rights,
Exactly.
One of the best kids was I'll just name a few of them because they were all different years, different situations. Jim Brooks, one of our milers and half milers, a good kid. Solomon Hunter, graduate of University of Tennessee. David Lapp, graduated University of Tennessee. There are several others. Another young man, he went in the Marine Corps too, Irv Bryant. These young men had talents that, were really untapped. Dana Anderson was another hurdler. George Holmes. These all were young, fantastic athletes. And, I'd have to really sit down and look at stats. And I'd be really behooved to mention a particular one because they were all good and they were all, served their purposes in doing their athletic prowess. They were awesome.
Well, spoken like a truly successful coach, because it's not just one athlete, it's a group of athletes.
Exactly right.
No matter what the sport. So how has track and field changed since you've coached? And are there recommendations you would make for changes in your sport?
Well, starting as an athlete and starting as a coach and being past president of the Philadelphia Area Track Coaches Association and participating in the meets and working with men like Scott Mills
Mm-hmm.
from the Penn Relays, the USA Track and Field officials, Frank Greenberg. When you talk about mentors, after I started coaching, they became my mentors in how to run a track meet, how to organize this, how to organize that, the timing aspect. And you talk about improvements and being involved with the Penn Relays as you and I are or were and still is. And uh, you see successes and changes throughout the years. But the most significant change to me is the timing. That's always been an issue. Now, even at the high school level, they have the automatic timing devices and the finish line where results are instantaneous.
Yeah.
I think that's the most successful. Other than that, the organization and things that are going on now, and we have a strong core of coaching officials in this area. Ron Lopresti, who's president of Pennsylvania Track Coaches Association, and I are very tight. Carl Smith, who is currently the president of Philadelphia Area Track Coaches Association. These organizations are the organizations that have made the improvements that we wished for. And I would like to think now that they are here, especially at the high school level. The parents and the fans can actually go to a meet and enjoy it and have instantaneous results right there, right at the finish line. You remember the old days when in the 100-meter dash, it would take a half hour to get the results as to who the winner of the 100 meters was or the 100-yard dash. Those days are long gone.
Yeah.
And you don't even have any timers at the finish line anymore. Everything is so digital and automatic. So those are the improvements that we wished for a long time ago. They are the improvements that are current, and those are the things that make track and field what it is today.
Well, you were talking about officiating, and I know for me, the father judge relays, which was always held the week before the Penn Relays,
Yes.
that was always one of the best track meets for me to officiate. I just love that meet because you have great athletes competing. It isn't the big splash and pizzazz of the fabled Penn Relays, but it was a terrific track meet, and there were great athletes competing there, men and women.
Oh, and I happen to have a hand in starting that with Frank Valley and Norm Baker.
Norm Baker, yep.
Yeah, he was my hero.
Yeah,
and
he was a great guy.
Yes, we helped him set up that meeting, and we never looked back. And that was our prelude to the Penn Relays. I remember us having those discussions.
Yeah,
we had to have a big meet before the big Penn Relays. So
well, and Frank Greenberg, because of Frank Greenberg, you and I know each other because he's the one that got me involved so heavily as well. Well, I hate to say this, we're nearing the end of this conversation, and I wish we could go on a lot longer, but I have one question for you that we ask all of our interviewees. And that is, why is it an honor for you to be a member of the Chester County Sports Hall of Fame?
That's a great question. And it is a great honor to be or to have become a member of this august organization. And let me tell you this, I have the opportunity to share my experiences, to give a different perspective as to when I started, because athletics now are not like they were when I started. We talk about mentors and you can pick this star or that star and this kind of thing. We had to grow up with our stars. I remember names like Cleo Hill, who I went to school with, Elias Gilbert, one of the best hurdlers in the world. I had the opportunity to know people like Lee Calhoun from North Carolina Central, And I was a fledgling, but had an opportunity to learn from them and compete against them and with them. So when I can express those kinds of experiences with the youngsters and show where you can start and where you come from, and I use the platform as a member of the Chester County Hall of Fame, that makes me feel proud. You know, you get old and people forget, but this is documented, and I hope people can learn from my experience and from my being inducted into the Chester County Hall of Fame.
Well, Harry, people have learned many, many lessons from you over the years. I value our friendship. I learned two things today that I never knew before. And every time I talk with you, I learned something new. So thank you so much, Harry, for taking the time today to talk with us. And we'll close by saying that if you enjoy watching Spotlight on Sports, please come back to our website. There is a button you can click on for Spotlight on Sports, and you can see the interviews that we've done and spend some time listening to our Hall of Fame athletes. We hope you'll become a member of the Chester County Sports Hall of Fame. And as I said, if you feel sufficiently moved to give a gift to the Hall of Fame, we're always thankful for your support. So Harry, again, thank you so much, my friend. And it's been a wonderful experience for me. Have a great day.
Thank you for the opportunity, Michael.
All right, be well.
Be well yourself.